In Diablo 2, there's a lot of items out there, and obviously due to their ease of being memorized and having a distinct color, most people will value unique sets and runewords fairly high, and while each of these have really strong options, today we're going to look at how magical items still serve a major role in both mid-game and end-game Diablo 2 by looking at those worth re-rolling and those worth buying. The former giving you easier access to uncommon but desirable items, the latter giving you access to common but extremely powerful items. It is important to remember some of these items will be expensive, just like it is with gambling, so finding money effectively can be very important. That said, first we're going to talk about what rerolling is, and then cover what to shop for on the tail end. Rerolling is using the Roderick Cube formula to give you a second shot at stats on an item. This can be done with a number of formula, but for today's episode, we're going to be looking at one in particular: 3 perfect gems and 1 magic item. The reason this formula is so special is that it 100% preserves the item's hidden eye level, or basically the aspect of the item that helps determine what modifiers it can get. This is obviously expensive, so you want to save it for items you cannot shop, such as charms, circlets, monarch shields, paladin shields, necro heads, sorcerer's orbs, druid and barbarian helmets, etc. And while you can aim for sweet spots, it's usually safe to just assume higher is better if you're unsure. It is worth noting some of these are a lot more valuable than others based on max possible sockets, modifiers they can spawn with, etc. Outside of these, you'll generally want to focus on shopping rather than rolling, so you can save your gems for these rerollable items. The most popular thing to reroll is easily going to be charms, more precisely late nightmare and hell difficulty grand charms and hell small charms, since the most desirable traits for these types of charms are possible on level 50 plus grand charms and mid 70s small charms, unless you're searching for elemental damage small charms or perfect life grand charms, in which case you're wanting to be rerolling specifically things like bale charms, which are significantly less common, and the only way to verify them is if they actually already have one of these stats or you find them yourself. This is an easy way to build up your supply of various skill charms, magic find charms, resist charms, life charms, and damage and attack rating charms. There are obviously other good ones, but these are the usually sought after gems. Outside of charms though, you will see a lot less rerolling, even though there are a handful of items that can get exceptionally powerful options from this, especially in the socketable item space, like with paladin shields and monarch shields, since they can pack jeweler's mod for some high-end and niche builds that need the sockets with additional modifiers like life, block rate, and speed, of course, or damage reduction. Similar things can be done with some weapons, but it's a lot more fiddly and you're less likely to get something quite as amazing. It is important to note that with all of these, you only have a 25% chance to have both a prefix and a suffix, and then an astronomically lower odds of it being the jewelers with the suffix you want. The other rerolls you'll find will be of plus skill items, and try to get the magic exclusive +3 to a tree prefix combined with some other natural skill boosts. These are also pretty expensive to go for and far less common as well, since every condition you add to what you're looking for, the odds of finding it go down by orders of magnitude. That said, rerolling isn't the only way to get good magic items. As we said earlier, for example, an alternative to rolling monarch shields is giving up a little run walk speed and going on a shopping spree for ward shields, which are the next best thing, and a little less resource intensive to search for with a Jewelers of X mod. The same can be done for Jewelers Helms of X and Jewelers Armors of X of various types. That brings us to shopping, something I will wholeheartedly admit I do a bit too much of in Diablo 2. For me, these days at least, it's mostly for crafting materials for normal stuff like blood or safety gloves, caster belts, various boots, etc. But also for more esoteric stuff like attempting to roll odd crafted weapons, which admittedly rarely works out for the best, even after a few hundred tries. But you didn't come here looking for crafted items, since that's an entirely different video. You came here for the magical stuff you can simply run to the corner store and buy with your hard-earned gold. The things you should be on the lookout for when it comes to magical items, like we mentioned, elite jewelers items of course with max sockets for slot, but also stuff you can get early on, like a staff of teleport or wands of life tap that can be gotten from Act 3 normal, or wands of lower resist that can be gotten from Act 4 normal. Terror, enchant, and dim vision charges can also be pretty easy to come across as well, albeit slightly less useful. It is nice to keep one around on a mule in case you have an odd build that might want it and you don't have another source of these particular charges. There is also the amplified damage weapons that can serve as a stopgap until you find something better for your mercenaries. Since it's on striking rather than charges, they can greatly help you with physical immunes until you get to something like Reaper's Toll. And one of these days, I am oddly determined to find myself a Jeweler's Thresher of amplified damage for really stupid reasons, but that's an entirely different discussion. Probably the most shop for items though are going to be your +3s. +3 trap claws with good individual skills from Hell Anya, and +3 Amazon gloves, usually javelin, but you can also get bow with 20% increased attack speed. You'll also sometimes notice people doing early shops for druid clubs, warcry weapons for barbs, etc. Though unlike the first two +3s, these generally are swapped out late game for better items in slot, but those are reliable for the effect regardless. And while you technically can shop for +3 wands for the Necro, for example, that's usually only worthwhile for summoners, and only sometimes, with white being better for poison bone Necros and a lot easier to find. The reality is, and the point of all this, is that despite magic items generally being, well, mediocre to bad, there are items that can actually end up being GG endgame gear that let you reach extremes otherwise not possible. I'm sure, even though I'm recording this from a list of notes, that I will have a few missed things, so do you have some favorite underappreciated magic items? Mention them down below, and give special thanks to the patrons and channel members that make these videos possible, since it means we can make more fun side guides rather than simply playing into the best of algorithm.